Here we are. It is, let's see, October 11th, 2022. And today we're going to take a look and see how the Sotheby sale did over in Hong Kong that took place over the weekend for Saturday and Sunday and so forth. And in general, I think it was great. I think it was pretty good. They had some really strong results in some areas. They had some disappointments. But I think overall they have to be pretty pleased with what was going on and how it all came out because of the economy and everything that's happening in the world. You know, the whole world's gone crazy, it seems. At any rate, here we are, and let's take a walk through it. We're going to hit some of the. So we'll go back and look at some of the lots we talked about before the sale, and see how things went, and talk about the pieces that sold. A couple of things we didn't preview earlier, and check the results. It was overall it was pretty good. One of the things we did talk about, this was something we looked at last week, was this really great Huanhua Li Qilong seal chest that was in this was in the Hoteng collection. Absolutely amazingly well carved, fabulous quality. I loved it, as you may recall. Apparently, so did a lot of other people. These Ming cabinets are always popular, and this was a fairly rare one. It was estimated at 600,000 to 800,000 Hong Kong, or roughly $80,000 to $100,000, and it ended up going way over that. Sold for 2.772 million Hong Kong. And that works out to about 350,000 or so dollars. So they must be very pleased with that. This was a heck of a nice cabinet, very, very nice. And then onto this, also in the Hoteng collection, was that very, very rare Yuan Dynasty fish jar. This was the one that was handled years ago by Eskenazi and Company in London. It got a lot of attention the first time it sold. I think it was in the British Rail Pension Fund, maybe, something like that. And any rate, it was estimated at 20 to 25 million Hong Kong, which was sort of what it brought, I think, the last time it sold 15 or so, 17 years ago, somewhere around there in that range. It did better this time. It went up quite a bit. It ended up selling for 39,700,000 Hong Kong dollars, or roughly 4.5 million US. But absolutely fabulous jar. Like I said last week, you know, come in and screen capture these pictures for your own records, because this is what a jar like this should look like. The details are excellent, and there are so many fakes of these floating around. If you're out there and you're going to some auction, I should point this out, you know, I say it often, but if you're going to some auction somewhere, you know, in the South or in the Midwest, and they have some jars that look like this, you can generally rest assured they're copies because they don't turn up very often. There are only a handful of these known in the entire world, and they've all been accounted for as far as I know. I don't think there are any of these languishing around unrecognized in somebody's basement anymore. I mean, it happens once in a while. Once in a blue moon, a jar turns up or a vase turns up out of the blue, sells for a lot of money, but it isn't typical. It's not typical. All right, it's an extremely rare event when you consider the millions and millions of pieces that are out there floating around. So always keep that in mind. And then there was this. We didn't preview this because we don't usually do too much with paintings, but this was a really interesting painting by Chi Bai Shi. And it was interesting for a number of reasons, and it did awfully well. It was estimated at 18 to 30 million Hong Kong dollars, and it ended up selling for just a hair under 80 million Hong Kong, or nearly $10 million for the set. And Chi Bai Shi was a very prolific painter. He was highly regarded, as many of you know, all of his life. And this set of paintings of this type, he didn't do very often. There's a somewhat similar set at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And what's so unusual about it? One is it's a set of 4, and 2, these were huge. These scrolls were 9 feet long each. They were enormous and meticulously painted, and these are fruit and flowers. And down at the bottom, I like the way they did this. They did a little thing for each painting: peaches, loquats, and plantain lilies, pomegranates and plum coxcombs, and grapes. And then below that, they do a bit of a write-up on where the painting's been published, catalog notes. They always do a long catalog note on Chi Bai Shi if it's one of his major works, because he's such an interesting painter. And the crowd loved this. They absolutely loved it, and it went way over its estimate. But I don't think it had been in and out of many auctions. the provenance on it. Let's see. The last time it sold was in 1988 at Christie's Hong Kong, and those kinds of things, when they come back to the market after almost half a century, they always do well, it seems. Always do well. And then this, the Guanyin of the Dali Kingdom, a very, very rare bronze. These Dali bronzes do not turn up very often. One appears on the market every so many years. And there is a huge amount of interest and demand for these because it was their historical place in China was quite unusual. It was like a parallel kingdom within China, and it was they actually ended up being absorbed by they're in the Yuan province, and they ended up being absorbed sort of into the Mongol Yuan dynasty, but they were allowed to remain fairly autonomous. They were sort of a special place. At any rate, the bronze was estimated at 15 to 20 million Hong Kong dollars, and it more than doubled, 2.5 times the high estimate, selling for $48,775,000. So that translates roughly into about $6 million US. But these Dali bronzes always bring this. Some of you may recall the big standing figures of these, and they just go through the roof. They go absolutely wild for these, and they did this time. This was made during the 11th or 12th century. It was a very early casting, beautifully done. And then, of course, you have the really rare Hanwha Li horseshoe chair. As I said last week, these are always of great interest to collectors, and ones with good provenances are even more so. And this was a fairly good case in point. It was estimated at 10 to 15 million Hong Kong dollars. Ended up selling for 124 million. So it went roughly 8 times over its estimate, 800% of its estimate. Absolutely, but this was a stupendous example, absolutely stupendous example. And unfortunately, because this one did so well, I suspect you're going to see a lot of copies of these turning up on the market in the next few months. So just be aware that there's only a handful of these known in the world. And there's a couple of them in both the Palace museums have them, and I think there's one in the British Museum, and there aren't too many after that, I'm afraid. At any rate, 124 million. Come over and read the write-up on it. Do a screen capture on this, and also take a look at this. The provenance in this chair, and you'll see why its track record and how it went from one great collection to another great collection to a dealer and all that. And here it is being auctioned, 124 million Hong Kong. Spectacular. And then the Yuan Dynasty Charger. This was also in the same collection, estimated at 30 to 50 million Hong Kong, which is a little heavy. Ended up selling for 18 million. It went a little under its estimate. It went under its estimate by almost half. Why? I don't know. This is one of those strange mysteries, the inconsistencies right now in the market. This, to me, was a highly desirable plate, and while it's an enormous amount of money, a couple of $2 million for $2.25 million for a dish is certainly nothing to sneeze at. I think it was a bargain. I think this was like one of the bargains of the week, so to speak, relative to other objects and their values in the market right now. Why it went for that, who knows? Maybe one of you knows, so leave a comment why. But this was certainly equal to that jar that sold as far as quality goes, a different type of quality, but equal in quality, equal in age, and not quite the interest, not quite the same interest. It was a big piece, but it did well. It did fine. It's still a lot of money. And then over to this. This is from the Dr. Wu Quan collection. And we did talk about this because I just thought it was such an amazing piece of porcelain. It's one of only a handful known in the world. The quality and so forth is just spectacular on it. The enamel, the crispness of the enamels, the clarity of the enamels, the shape of the vase, the potting is just superb. And when you look down the piece, and you just see how the form all flows, the shape all flows beautifully, and then you look at how that was decorated, all goes with it just perfectly, all the way down. And this is a revolving vase. In the interior here, you turn it with this part here, and the interior, there's an interior vase that's in there, and you can watch it rotate. All right, and There was a huge amount of interest in this. Obviously, it was estimated at 60 to 120 million Hong Kong dollars, and it sold for over its high estimate by about half. It went for 177 million Hong Kong. That's just a hair over $20 million US, 21 million in US dollars. An enormous price, and that I think this makes this about, maybe the third or fourth most expensive piece of porcelain ever sold. Chinese porcelain. I think it's right up there now. This is going to be in the record books, but beautiful piece. And then this, the Cloisonne, the big Cloisonne Marken period Chunlung incense burner. This didn't bring quite as much as I thought it would. I thought it would do better because it's enormous and extremely rare. It was 123 centimeters tall, so about 40. How tall is that? That's 3, 4, a little over 4 feet tall. Good size, and ended up bringing in a lot of money. It brought $14 million, just a little under its low estimate. But the estimate was fairly tight, 15 to 20 million. But they didn't estimate this too broadly, because sometimes they'll say 15 to 25 million or something. That's a big range. But this is 15 to 20. It brought just a hair under 15, a few $1,000s. All right, but a beautiful piece of Cloisonne. And then this, the yellow ground in green incise decorated dragon vase, an absolutely great example. Yongchen Marken period. They have a good picture of the base. We didn't talk about this one last week. It was from the Fonthill collection. Fonthill heirlooms, as they called it, euphemistically, or displayed at the Oriental Ceramic Society. Very desirable piece of porcelain. Good shot of the foot rim on it. And the base, to get a real sense of what the clay looks like. It was estimated at 3 to 4 million Hong Kong, and it went, well, almost 2.5 times its high estimate. It was sold for 10,055,000 Hong Kong dollars, or around 1.2 million, 1.3 million. But a beautiful example, and this isn't a huge vase. It's measures about 12 inches tall, and but just a beautiful form, beautiful colors, perfect condition, rare, and with the Fonthill provenance, which basically means it probably came from the Palace Museum at the Yuan. All right, and then over here, this is more of the Joseph Lau collection. There's this Lianxi Marken period Xuande bowl. Very, it's a very familiar form. You see a lot of copies of this bowl floating around. There are lots of copies, but this is an authentic one, obviously. Beautiful interior. It's a very, very well-known type, very memorable decoration because of these leaves going up the outside. And then there's the mark on the bottom, and meticulously done, beautifully written, and the bowl is fabulous. And it sold for over its high estimate again, 3.7 million Hong Kong dollars, or around little over 400,000 US. And also for this, this was that Ming Yung Le Mei Ping vase, had a strong estimate, 25 to 35 million, and it just came in a hair under the low estimate, just a hair under $24 million. I think they were a little disappointed in that. I think they thought this would do a bit better, but it's still, it's still a $3 million in U.S. currency transaction, and a wonderful example. And you'll probably see it again in another 20 years. It'll come up in another auction. And then the more of the Hotong collection. This was the section that had the jades and things in it. They had this very nice pig jade, as they call them, or pig dragon jades, Neolithic period, Neolithic to Hongshan. Nice color. I like the way it was carved. We talked about it last week. Thought it was absolutely, had a great face on it. Liked the details, and the audience apparently liked it too, because it was estimated at 200,000 or 300,000, and it sold for $756,000. So it went for well over double its high estimate. Again, this was sort of how it went, or the thing didn't sell at all. It's really hard to explain. And then there was this brush pot that I absolutely loved. I loved this pot. It had a fairly strong estimate at 200,000 to 300,000, but it wasn't strong enough. Ended up selling for 1.2 million Hong Kong, which is a lot for a brush pot. Those of you that follow brush pots understand that it isn't very often that brush pots go over the $100,000 mark, $125,000 mark. But this was a nice one with mallow flowers on it, very classical, very Ming, and beautiful example. They dated it as 17th century, but that would mean early 17th century, late Ming. And it went for 1.2 million Hong Kong. So there you are. So that comes out to about $150,000 in U.S. currency. Beautiful example, though. Beautiful. And then over to the bronze. Again, this Eastern Zhao Dynasty bronze that had this wonderful azurite painting that was done over the bronze, giving it this terrific contrasting colors, sort of an electric blue over this heavily, fairly strongly patinated bronze surface. Loved the ribbing on this. It all worked beautifully. Thought it was terrific, and it had its original lid. These jars often don't have their original lids. Lids are long gone. They get separated and they get lost, and that's the end of them. At any rate, it was estimated at 400,000 to 600,000 Hong Kong dollars, and it went for double its high estimate at 1.2 million. Again, that comes in at about $150,000 US. But beautiful example. Unusual form, colors, the whole bit. It's how can you not like it? And the same thing happened with that Han Dynasty Warring States period, or not Han Dynasty, Eastern Zhao Warring States period bronze. This beautiful moon flask form, the patina on it. I look. We talked about this during the preview. It was because the patina was so nice on this. It had a wonderful surface and meticulously cast and in good condition, and it doesn't look like it looks like the patina is quite undisturbed on it, which has an enormous part to do with the value. And it was estimated at 200,000 or 300,000, ended up selling for 945,000, just a little over $100,000 US. And then the last thing we're going to look at is this. Remember, we talked about the rare, very rare robin's egg glaze seal marking period Qinlong vase. A really, really, really pretty vase. Beautiful color. The glaze just was meticulous, all the way down, perfectly even. There's no errors. The little details like the way the foot was finished, with a slight lip to it, and all that. Just a great example. And but beautiful color. The color was spectacular, and it was estimated at $3 to $5 million Hong Kong, and it ended up selling for $5 million. And this wasn't a huge vase. It was 33 centimeters tall, so it was about 13 inches, and it went for $5 million Hong Kong, or roughly that comes out to about $630,000 US, somewhere around there. All right. So, when you look back at all the sales, I think they did quite well, and they should be very pleased with them. They had some things that didn't sell, but also should be a warning to consigners. Don't set unrealistic estimates. Don't push the auction house into putting estimates on things that you don't like, because the items that didn't sell, I suspected, had a lot of interest on the floor. They just couldn't get to that big estimate. All right. And the smart sellers know better than to do that. So in the case of the Hotong sale, he did very, very well. The Lau stuff did quite well. They had a couple of buy-ins. But overall, it was a successful series of auctions. I think they should be very pleased. The grosses, the totals were good. The primary, the general fine Chinese works of art sale did fine. Jades were strong, and so forth. So I think it bodes well. All right. And don't forget, we're going to be doing the video on the Rockefeller collection. We're going to be doing that hopefully within the next day or two. Should be interesting. Should be a spectacular bunch of stuff for everybody to enjoy. And we'll see how it does, of course, once it's all over, and we'll go back and look at it. All righty. Have a great day, and we'll be back later this week with some more videos. So stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We do these videos at least once a week. Sometimes some weeks we do 3. As some of you know, we do 2 or 3 videos in a week, and we'll do them as many as we can do. All right. Have a great week, and see you all soon. Bye-bye.